And hello everybody. Welcome to Flight Past. This is the podcast style stream where we look at historical events from the air to get a better understanding. And this is part 17 of our look into Operation Tonga. And so if you haven't seen the other parts, please look back and have a look at it. Today I'm going to be leading a discussion on the conclusion of the Merville battery assault. In the previous episodes, we looked at how the 9th Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Brigade dropped here at the drop zones to the north of Merville. We discussed Major George Smith and his battery reconnaissance party, and we also talked briefly about Major Alan Parry and his rendezvous party. And we got to the point where Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway had landed and had moved up to the rendezvous point. Now what I'm going to do is, whilst I'm talking, I'm just going to fly a little bit, hand fly this a little bit around the site. So the location is the Merville battery, and as I say, this is part 17 of Operation Tonga. For those of you new to the channel, what I tend to do is, using Microsoft Flight Simulator, we have a look at some of the major historical events from history, and we have a look at the terrain and the heights of the terrain and how geomorphology and terrain affect the battlefield and the decisions made on those days. So the time and date, we've got to 2:45 in the morning, and we're at the Merville battery. This is an area to the east of the River Orne, which you can see there on the horizon, middle horizon distance. And down below is where you can see the Merville battery coming into sight. We're just going to be flying over it in a few seconds. It's this group of bunkers down below. If you are interested in history, I presume you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching, you can join me on Discord, and this allows you to come down to some of the posts that we've made. You'll see, we'll see a timeline for most of the events that we're doing, and this one is on D-Day, and you'll be able to follow along what's going on. If you I want to stress is that I'm leading a discussion on these. I'm not lecturing you, so because I'm flying live and talking off the cuff, I will inevitably make some errors, but that is okay. You can join in the discussion and down below. And correct any information you think I've got wrong. So you can see here, this is a section that we've done on the Merville. Otway moves his men forward to assault position firm base at 2:45. So you'll be able to come on here and you can add on anything that you feel is fitting. You'll be able to also be able to see future subjects. It won't just be on World War II. You'll be able to come on and you'll see these research sections. You can click on there and give any information that you can, which we can add to the stream when we get to it. So that's Discord. You'll find the link in the profile. Right, so I'm just going to put this onto autopilot. Might be a little bit easier for me to talk. Just set the altitude. Yeah, it's doing this thing again. Get a little bit frustrated sometimes with this autopilot. Okay, so let's start talking, pick up where we got off from last time. And we're going to be talking a lot about this guy here, Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway. And we left him at the forward firm base, they called it. Now, we discussed that this area here was probably the rendezvous point, and I suspect that this copse of trees here, which marked the formation, the area where they formed up for the firm base to attack the battery, which is here. I've got a little picture of the map, so you can see if I were coming in from the bottom right on this little drawing, we've got the RV points and the firm base, and then we can see that the main assault will come up this side, and then there's a diversionary assault round this way into the battery from the north east. So just keep that in mind when you're when we're talking about this. some of the areas where things are happening are guesswork here. So if anyone knows, then please put a comment in the section below. Now, let's get to this forward firm base. He's arrived here. He's met up with Major George Smith, and George Smith has returned from his recce of the battery to tell him that there's no issues. Major Smith, he was part of this, I think they called it the Trowbridge Party, which was the battery reconnaissance party. And Major Alan Parry was in charge of a taping party, which was to basically lay tape from this firm base up to the battery where George Smith has shown the best places to breach the battery. It's at this point as well that Captain Greenway tells Otway of the state of the drop. 600 men in the 9th Parachute Battalion dropped in this area, but by this was at about probably 1 o'clock. By 2:45 in the morning, there's reports that anything between 50, I think it started up as 50, and by the time Otway decides to move out, he estimates he has about 150 men. Now, we discussed the battery. The troops stationed here, we estimated probably about 200 troops are based in and around the battery and in the villages surrounding. So he's now lost his weight of numbers advantage. He decides, he has his chat with his Batman, and decides to carry on. And he decides that he can't go for his original plan, which was for 4 breaches into the wire surrounding the battery, and that he could only go for 2. He didn't have the numbers that he wanted. He wanted at least 100 men per section, so he could only really do 2. He didn't have enough Bangalore torpedoes. We discussed earlier that the gliders that are coming in, 3 of the gliders, actually it might be 5 of the gliders that are carrying in the heavy equipment hadn't made it. So he was lacking in the equipment to storm the battery. He decides to give the job of attacking the battery to Major Dyer. He was to lead the assault with his C Company, but Major Dyer hadn't arrived, so in his absence, then he gave the command to Major Alan Parry, and he decides that the assault will be made with a composite force between A and C companies. Initially, approximately about a total of 50 men. But we know that that number increases a little bit as he waits for more people to turn up. They report about forming up ready for the assault, and they get spotted by machine guns and fired upon. And the estimated position of the machine guns, it's difficult to say where they were. It's described as being on both flanks. I've seen reports that there was a machine gun over here, was firing at them, and another one to the south, which kind of makes some sort of sense. And this Otway immediately tells Sergeant Knight to rush over to neutralize these machine gun positions. Sergeant Knight was going to be the guy who would command or be involved with the diversionary attack from this side as well later on. So Otway decides that this is time to move his men forwards. He moves in this direction, and you can see in this field here probably remnants. These dots are probably remnants of bomb craters, because the RAF had overshot the Merville battery, and he uses these bomb craters to advance his assault party up towards the start-off point. Because he didn't have as many men, as I say, he decides that he's going to use 2 breaching positions in the wire, and he, with the Bangla doors, he had to spread them out, blow them up, and then he would use his men as almost a human sort of mattress that the others could run across. Talk about these machine guns that were giving them problems on their flanks. I mentioned Sid Knight. He moved off to the north because he was going to be part of the diversionary attack. And the machine gun to the south was attacked by Sergeant Patrick McGeever and Corporal James McGuinness. And they took the only Vickers that they had and to silence it. And that was probably, the machine gun was somewhere in this area here. Sergeant Knight moved around into this position here, and they basically loosed off everything they could. They, at this point, Otway's men had moved towards the casements from this side, so Sergeant Knight made sure that he was firing to the east. Basically, Otway says that he didn't want to risk hitting any of the assault force, so he was just making up a lot of noise. They threw grenades, made lots of noise, and made the Germans in the battery come out to find what was happening. They kept moving around in this area so that they couldn't be spotted in any concentration, and to make it appear that there was more numbers than there were over here, because at the end of the day I think there was 4 or 5 guys only over here on this side. So we've now come to I believe the formation, the planning has taken almost an hour and a half, and we get to about 4:30 in the morning. Now remember, Otway's on a timer here, because if he doesn't get this assault done, I believe it was by about 5:30, then the naval bombardment would finish the job, or try to finish the job for him. As we mentioned, the suspected guns in this were 115 millimeter, and that had a range of about 8 miles. So it was deemed that the landings here at Sword Beach would be threatened by this battery. So 4 o'clock comes along, and Otway is waiting now for the appearance of the Horsa gliders that will be bringing in the volunteers. Something, I think about 50 volunteers of the coup de main party. Now, this to me is probably one of the absolute bravest things I've ever heard. Probably of anything on D-Day. We're talking about a group of men who have volunteered, a bit like Major John Howard and the bridges over there. But these guys have volunteered to land in a glider inside this battery complex. You have presumably there's a Dakota or something there. So there, we've discussed the bravery of D Company and their approach, but these guys are trying to actually crash land on top of a battery that is could possibly have anything from 100 to 200 people inside and attack these concrete casements that are here. It's absolutely mind-boggling brave. And I thought we'd just try and repeat that and see if we can get anywhere near close to that. So I'm going to put out the lights. We're going to kill these strobes, landing lights, all these sort of things. And like we did with D Company, we'll try to reenact these events. So I'm just going to fly back out to sea, and then we'll come back in again. So the gliders are planned to land at 4:30 in the morning. And their Lieutenant Colonel Otway's job was to assist the gliders by, at the same time as they're going in, they'd be firing flares, very lights, in order to help the gliders to see the objective. Now there was 3 gliders planned on landing here. One of them very early on after takeoff lost its tow rope and had to go back. 2 came in, 1 crashed. One crashed about 2 or 3 miles away, couldn't find the thing, and the other one, as we find, also crashed. Okay, so we'll cut the engine here, and we're going to try and find this battery. Now, Otway says that at 4:30 he could see a glider circling above, trying to find the battery to land on. But because they didn't have any fairy lights, flares, they couldn't signal to the glider where it was that their objective was. And this has got lights. I can't see where this thing is. This is set to the correct moonlight as well, I think, for D-Day, and you kind of just got to sort of guess. So we're searching here, trying to find the battery. So we obviously can't, and this is what happens on the actual day. The glider overshoots, and as you can see on the map, it lands or crash lands probably to the south, the southeast from the target. Okay. So let's find out where we are. Let's put the lights on. And see if we can see where we are. So we have landed a long way away. This is we've landed on the drop zone, so we probably would have survived. But the real glider, as I say, was circling over the battery, trying to identify an Otway who was here on the southeastern side. Got spotted. Eventually, the glider couldn't see it, and it flew this way, and it's believed there was an orchard. As you can see on the map, it's to the south of the firm base, so it's presumably maybe in this area here, and the glider crashes.